Back with you right here on SportsGrid. Betting above the rim, the college basketball today edition. We've got an hour until we start to tip off some big games, some crypto specials. We're going to get into that ACC. It's Kevin Walsh, Joe Lisi, and Coach James Young with you here on this Saturday morning. But if we're going to get into the ACC, we need to talk Duke basketball. And if we're going to talk Duke basketball, we need to talk Cooper Flagg. Let me just quickly say this. It's one soapbox moment, and then I'll get off of it until I get back on. Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flagg wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball, when the best players are actually playing college basketball. Now, Cooper Flagg thinks he might want to come back a sophomore year. Somebody give that kid a shake. Put that Wizards jersey on, buddy, and figure it out, because we're not playing 2 years at Duke. We've had some movement, though, within the Wooden Award race between Broome and Flagg, and that does feel noteworthy. That, to me, I'm a little surprised by. Flagg took the lead over Johni Broome when Broome went down with a 2-game injury. Albeit minimal, Flagg started to extend in this race. You see, preseason, they were two of the top guys. Flagg was the favorite across most sports books, but it's Broome's recent play that has pushed him back to the top of the market, JY.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it, it's a two-part. It's one, the play Johni Broome, but it's also some of these other guys with Duke stepping up, and Cooper Flagg, ready, folks? Not needing to go get you 20, 25 points in a game, right? He's got other guys that are capable scorers that have played relatively well. So it's almost about like that, but it's also of best team, best league, big performances. I don't think we've seen the last of Cooper Flagg, especially if he goes out a week from tonight at the Dean Dome and puts up a monster performance. You even look at the game last week. Like, he gets hurt by the fact that they beat Illinois by 50 and he didn't have to score. Right? Johni Broome has to score. Has to. Cooper Flagg can dime you up, get rebounds, play great defense. So is it going to be about the guy with the best scorer on the team that's elite, or a guy, Cooper Flagg, that may be the most complete player in college basketball, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Coach brings up great points. I'll leave the analysis in terms of the basketball player to Coach. But what I see, and if you were asking me just in terms of value, right, where are we seeing it? So over the last 5 games, Cooper Flagg has averaged 19 points per game. His average is 19.4. Broome, we said it earlier, last 5 games, 21.6 points per game. But you look at the victories for Duke. They beat up on Miami. They beat up on Virginia. Stanford, who's absolutely just atrocious, a mediocre team. So the brand recognition of who Duke is beating, it takes away from the success. On the flip side, the SEC is the best conference. When you're beating teams like Alabama and you're beating teams like Kentucky or that type of recognition, it carries a little bit more because Broome is so important to that team as a whole. So Will he give ground? I don't think he will, as long as, because think about what you just said. You said, I can't foresee Auburn being 17. If they are, Broome's going to get it, right? There's nothing that Cooper Flagg can do over the next 3 games against North Carolina, Florida State, and Wake Forest that's going to take away from what Broome can do in terms of victories.
So for me, I think what you said is true. That's why, when we've seen the number come back a little bit, I think they got a little head over their skis, because if Auburn does lose a game, I think we start to move things. And I also think, I think Auburn is fantastic. I think Auburn losing twice before votes are in is very live. Because I think they lose one of these regular season games, and then they still have to get through the SEC tournament. If Duke loses again, that would be surprising. It doesn't mean it can't happen. Like, if they lose the final game at North Carolina, he being Cooper Flagg, not going to win this award. But I want to take something that might be a boost for Coop that relates to today's game against Florida State and how I'm betting that game. And this might have ended up my best bet, but it wasn't released until, honestly, during our show. Cooper Flagg over 32.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Duke suffered a big injury in their most recent game with Tyrese Proctor going out. Proctor has been a steady hand at the lead guard position for this ball club. Flagg is their best player, make no doubt about it, but Proctor coming back is one of the big reasons that I was in on Duke preseason, to the degree that I was, and still am. And with those absences, I think we see Cooper Flagg have an even bigger workload now. Playing a Florida State team, not great defensively, uptick in tempo a little bit there. Flagg hasn't had one of those 20-point scoring efforts in quite some time. The rebounding goes up when he plays teams with this type of tempo, and he might have to take on more facilitating duties with Proctor out of the lineup here, JY. I think Cooper Flagg stuffs the stat sheet at home against FSU.
And I agree with you. And if you look at it really quick, go back to the Janai Broom thing with Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg only led Duke in scoring 2 of his last 9 games.
Yeah.
8 out of 10 for Janai Broom. So that's the sexy part of it, right? The scoring. But if you think about and I'm going to bounce off of Kevin here and just think of it as a coach. If you think Cooper Flagg is going to stuff the stat sheet, then maybe look at someone like Isaiah Evans over 10.5 points. There's a correlation here where if Cooper Flagg is really good sight vision, is coming off the screen with eyes open, Evans could be one of the guys that could benefit. 10.5 points at minus 130 on FanDuel right now. If you like Cooper Flagg, parlay it in with Evans to go over 10.5 points.
What do you think about Duke today against Florida State, Lisa, or do you want to just get to the Virginia game?
I'll talk to you. I've tried to get in front of the Duke train. They've won 5 straight by an average margin of victory of 30.6 points per game. The only game I actually did cover during that span was an in-game bet on NC State plus 25.5. They've been smashing teams. And on the flip side, you have Florida State that has lost 3 straight games by an average margin of defeat of 9 points per game. It's not just that. The team's playing with no emotion. Hamilton, the coach, right? I know it's his swan song. They could steal his car. He still wouldn't care. No emotion. No, we're not coaching it up on the sidelines. We're not getting any down on it. We're getting beaten by a drum. Coach it up, Lennon Hamilton. What are we doing? He's just sitting there watching. Yeah. The hits are coming. Like, they're catching 21.5. If you force me to bet this game, I would close my eyes and take the points with Florida State because I think it's just a little too much, but we'll see how this plays out.
If I went anywhere with this game in regards to plays, I would take Duke in the first half. I think they come out and they smash them.
Yeah.
I think they smash them. I mean, with the game up to UNC, I think, after giving up 96 points to UNC, UNC team scored 49 points, gave 43, can't defend.
Yeah.
Duke defends.
Yeah.
So to me, if you take anything with this game, maybe Duke in the first half.
Let me just say this, though. Lisi and I feel like, I don't know, a month or so ago at this point, Duke was playing Miami, and we were like, this Canes team will hang. And I feel like ever since then, me and Lisi went off on different paths, but they were both wrong. Lisi then just kept trying to bet against Duke, and I just kept trying to bet on Miami. And Miami's terrible, and Duke just keeps rolling. But let me tell you this, maybe it's the South Beach two-step. FSU, I like these Canes against UNC. Are you kidding me? You're telling me Miami catching, 2 touchdowns, a field goal, and then a little bit more? 18.5, 17.5. JY, am I crazy to like Miami a little bit today against North Carolina?
Yes. I think you're crazy because at the end of the day, if you look at this matchup today, Carolina needs wins, and they need to win impressively, which may include
Lines
winning
dropping
at home versus Duke next Saturday. So, listen, I mean, these two teams are brain dead down in South Florida. What's going on down there? And I think there's no worse of a case with Florida State. I have a coach that's leaving, and you let him coach out the year? Like, at least Larry Nagel stepped down and like, get me out of here. You're not giving me NIL money? I'm out.
Yeah, I can't get in front of Miami right now. They're terrible. They've lost 4 straight by an average margin of defeat. But now, 17.2 points per game. Hubert Davis has this team trending to potentially a March Madness appearance. I'm not staying in the way of that.
That line is dropped enough that I can now gladly step away. Up next, the Big Ten and a crypto special, all right here on SportsGrid.
two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. Put it into a bend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back here on SportsGrid. Let's button up the ACC before we get into the Big Ten. Joe Lisi, you're in the mix.
I am. It's a crypto special. Smash job. Clemson's hot as a pistol, 13th in the nation. They've won 5 straight by an average margin of victory of 15.4 points per game. You have a Virginia team, 14-14 overall, 7-10 in conference.
Yeah.
They get the victory over Wake Forest. Rumor mill, Tony Bennett's going to be in the rafters. Ugly game. Smash play. Virginia, I got them plus 7.5 down to 6.5.
Right.
They might win it outright. Virginia plus the point.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait. And we get to do it all again when we hit the best bet segment. It's a fantastic breakdown. I'll let people know I am going to take Pittsburgh plus 10.5. There are a few teams whose games I should stop betting. Miami is one of them. Luckily, I won't do that today. Pitt's not the problem. Louisville is. I have not accepted how good they are all season, but that's why I haven't been betting Louisville games recently. Louisville has not played one of the upper echelon teams in over a month now in the ACC action. Now, yes, the last time they did, it was SMU, and they beat them by $1 billion on the road. Louisville's very good, but I think this double-digit number is too much. When these teams first met, Pittsburgh was a 3.5-point favorite. Now a 10.5-point dog. I'm going to take my chance with the Panthers. Let's talk Big Ten. Coach James Young, Maryland, Penn State. There could be some important ears waiting on every single word you're about to have for this breakdown here. The Terps certainly could use a bounce back.
They could use a bounce back after losing, obviously, that game at the buzzer, but it's a roadie.
Uh-oh.
It's a roadie.
Uh-oh.
And Maryland stuff, they're not good on the road, and they're going against my guy, Mike Rhodes, former VCU guy. Everybody knows I'm a shocker guy. So I am going to do my JY special, which is take the home dog to win outright. Upset special today.
Outright.
Nittany Lions.
Wow.
That's a better coach than James Franklin. Sorry about that. He gets the win today over Maryland.
No arguments about James Franklin. Still trying to win a big game in Happy Valley. I will say when I opened up and looked at the lines for as soon as they put them out, I know Maryland coming off the buzzer beater, it's got to be deflating. You go on the road. They have won 4 of the last 5. And Penn State typically a better home team than they are on the road, right? I thought the line was a little fishy. I'm not going to play it in any capacity. And now we saw movement and fluctuation from 5.5 down to 5. If I was betting, I would take Penn State, but it's a no play for me.
Yeah, I got a Julian Reese bounce back special here that I absolutely love. When we look at Julian Reese last game, he was a big part of why the Terps fell short. Just did not have it going offensively for them. Scored single digits, didn't even have himself double-digit rebounds. So when we look at how he has responded off of those games, it has been fantastic. He has 7 consecutive times gone over 22.5 points plus rebounds when the prior game he had less than 10. The sample size of games where he did it against a Big Ten opponent and the next game was against a Big Ten opponent, 16-10, 23-7, 27-17, 13-12. I expect Julian Reese to be excellent here in a game where they're going to need him to be excellent. No other ranked action for the Saturday portion of Big Ten play. Anything, though, Coach, that's caught your eye on this Big Ten board?
Indiana needs to win. I mean, they went from a team that was, couldn't Mike Woodson resign a month ago? Yeah. Because they've been playing much better basketball. I know they lost that game a little over a week ago to UCLA, but to bounce back and win a couple of games versus Purdue and Penn State, to go on the road against a Washington team that is awful, 4-13 in the Big Ten. If Indiana is going to make the tournament, they can't lose today. And they're only, I think, a 1.5, 2.5 point favorite. Indiana goes on the road on the money line and gets a win.
Yeah, a very good look. I like Indiana as well against Washington. I think it's a 6 o'clock tip, so keep an eye out for that. I'm invested in this Oregon team. When any team puts money in my pocket, especially stepping up the way they did in Madison last week, right? 8.5 point dogs trail by 17. They battle back, get it into overtime and win, and then win the game 77-73. That's great. They won 4 straight by an average margin of victory of 7.6 points per game. You saw the line open up at 7.5, down to 6.5 with USC coming to town. I like the athleticism of Oregon. I'm going to lay the 6.5 with the Ducks. Quack, quack.
I will say Oregon beating Wisconsin is something I was very happy about because I almost ended up in the blame zone for that, and it would have been well-deserved. The one non-ranked spot I was looking at was Nebraska, Minnesota. And really a you owe me Nebraska spot. Played over 151.5 in their game against Michigan. You know, we saw they're still scoring. Yeah, they're still missing out there on that. Neither team crossed 50 in that game. But I think it's a big part of why the total's only 134.5 against Minnesota. I know that they're slow. I get that, Minnesota. I got it. But 134.5. You know, this Minnesota total is similar when they played UCLA, who matches them for, bottom 25, bottom 30 tempo teams in the country. That's not Nebraska. Nebraska's good defensively, but they're much faster than this. I think that's a low total. I'll ask you quickly, JY, because we do this here on a Saturday. Sunday-wise, do you feel strongly about anything in that Michigan State-Wisconsin game? Obviously, a very important one in Big Ten play.
Yeah, it's obviously a huge game, and obviously Michigan State coming off of that road win. Listen, it's March, it's East Lansing, it's Izzo, it's Michigan State. This team is playing really good basketball right now. Winners of 4 straight. And obviously Wisconsin up and down can score the ball. Let's see what happens because Wisconsin also gives up a lot of points. But I'm going to go with Michigan State at home to get the win in the cover.
I really want to see what that number checks in at for me because I think that this is a number that if you had to book it 2 weeks ago, right, it's like 2.5. The recent results that we've seen for Michigan State, 6. I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what they're going to do with this number and then kind of try and figure it out from there. Now, we're coming up against the break. But when we come back, we would be fools to not talk about a top 5 matchup in college basketball, a top 4 matchup today in college basketball. Number 2, UCLA, and number 4, USC in the women's game. That's next.
two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top three teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number one, do they fix their defensive problems? And two, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We are live with you right here on SportsGrid. It is Betting Above the Rim, the College Basketball Today edition. So great to have you here on this Saturday. And look, of course, you know, the men's game is going to get the lion's share of the attention. But the women's game last year took off in a major way. We all know that. And it had been going on for the past couple of seasons. And now this year, a lot of that buzz is I still think sticking around. And you'll see it in March. And that's where we are. And I felt that of all of the regular season games, the most noteworthy one felt like it was probably when USC and UCLA went to battle a few weeks ago. It was a number 6 USC, and at the time, an unbeaten UCLA Bruins, the number 1 team in college basketball. Well, at USC, the Trojans got it done. Slight home dog in the game behind Juju Watkins, 38 points. Well, now back at UCLA, the Bruins are favored, and we're going to get into this in Coach's Corner.
What a matchup. Two teams based in LA, USC, UCLA. And when you peel back and look at that win, that 71-60 win by USC, everyone's going to talk about the performance of Juju Watkins, and obviously what has led her to become now the favorite to win the Wooden Award on the women's side. But you got to pull back the game a little bit and look at the three-point line. As a coach, I always look at you got to win the three-point battle, right? Particularly on the road. So what we did here is we had Juju Watkins and their the USC Trojans shoot 8 out of 18 from three, 44.4%. Versus Lauren Betts' team, now obviously Lauren Betts is the pivot inside, they only shot 2 of 13 from three. So can Corey Close's team shoot the ball better from three-point line today? I think so. UCLA minus a 4.5 gets revenge over Lauren Betts, who did go 5 out of 13 from the floor. I think Kiki Rice and some of the other guards get a little bit more action in regards to knocking down shots. Plus, you know how it is as a coach, you always shoot better, particularly in your home building. But it kind of brings us to a little bit of a bigger segment, and that is the Wooden Award race. Because Lauren Betts was leading the charge until Juju Watkins and that performance. And now Juju Watkins is the leader in the clubhouse right now for National Player of the Year. And it's something, Kevin, that if you really look at it, right, with Juju, with Hidalgo, Lauren Betts, Paige Becker's way off the board, it's a three-player race. And I think these markets can move again based off of today's performances.
Yeah, I think, J1, that is certainly the case there. We know that that's what happens when you have marquee players playing against one another in marquee matchups. I think the big argument that is there for Juju, when you look at the list of, who they feel is even eligible in this race, it's the fact that Juju Watkins has a head-to-head victory over Lauren Betts and a head-to-head victory over Paige Beckers. They did lose to Notre Dame and Hannah Hidalgo. Juju still played very well in that basketball game, scoring 24, which matched Hidalgo's scoring. And it feels as if for Hidalgo, she's kind of been splitting credit with Olivia Miles, and maybe so in a way, JY, that people thought would be the case for Kiki Arafan, but maybe hasn't been as much. When we take a look in this game, the props have started to come out, which I know we were waiting on. 23.5 is the number on Juju Watkins, 20.5 for Lauren Betts. Irfan checks in at 17.5 for their number. Of those three, does one stand out to you amongst the rest?
Yeah, because I think Corey Close is going to get more than 13 shots for Lauren Betts. I look for her to go over and possibly get Kiri Arafan in foul trouble in the matchup. But one thing to look of note, especially if you bring back up the odds to win the Wooden Award, is don't sleep yet on Hidalgo. They got a big game against Louisville and Jeff Walsh tomorrow, which she could make a charge. If Juju and Betts don't have big games and Hidalgo goes off, they can do that. The other reason why Paige Beckers has fallen off the board, one, injuries, two, the play of AZ Fudd and Sarah Strong, which is why people are now looking at UConn possibly to win the national championship.
All stuff to keep in mind. One number that certainly just kind of sounds the alarm for me, but it's a Juju Watkins 7.5 rebound number. I know on the year she's at 6.9. She had 5 last game against Illinois, but before that, 8, 11, and 10. Could be a bounce-back spot where she had 11 rebounds in that game where they beat UCLA. Perhaps some opportunities for her on the glass in this matchup as they look to see if they can pull off the season sweep. We go back to the big games with you next right here on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back with you right here on Betting Above the Rim, and we're going to reset the top games that we've talked about in just a moment. Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, Texas A&M, for the SEC, baby. I mean, nobody doing it quite like the SEC, but also some big battles like Arizona and Iowa State. But before that, since this is our first show of the season, I thought it would be important to get into the national championship market. Talk about where we're positioned already and where we might be positioned in a little bit. And I'm going to go to you first, Joe, because I know that you are always willing to take a shot. At some point, we may do a segment called Hard Part Done. And trust me, you'll figure it out when we do. What are you looking at in that, or already have in the national championship market?
I've only put in, just so you know, national championship and Final Four odds. Yeah. So I'm invested in some of the top teams. But the one team I took a shot on is ranked 18th in the nation, Memphis, with Penny Hardaway and the Tigers. I like the way they play. They're athletic. P.J. Haggerty, a great guard. They have, I don't know how you say his last name, Musa Sis, the center. He's very athletic as well. But again, I feel like they're just being overlooked and overvalued. They're 23-5, 13-2 in terms of the conference, right? You look at them, 150-1 to win the national championship, top 25 team. And more importantly, from the Final Four perspective, 47-1. I'll take that any day of the week, Coach. I know they're not up there with the likes of, obviously, Duke and Auburn. But if this was Houston a couple of years ago, right, everybody was buying into Houston with cheaper numbers. Why can't it be Memphis this year?
You know, the thing about me as a coach is I can't put tickets in right now because I have to see it from a different lens.
Yeah.
To me, it's all about matchups. I mean, listen, are there two clear-cut favorites in Auburn and Duke? Absolutely. That's why they're sitting at minus money each to make the Final Four, and I fully expect them to both make the Final Four because they're not going to play each other. So then it gets down to, is it Houston? Is it Bama? Is it Florida, Tennessee? I mean, even St. John's. To me, it's all about matchups and who ends up where. And the critical thing that's got to be figured out is, where are you putting Duke? Are you putting Duke in the East, which allows Auburn to go to the South, right? Or do you put Auburn in the South and send Duke to the Midwest because Duke can draw anybody? Then the East opens up, maybe for Select Rec and St. John's. I don't know. But to me, I need to see matchups, Kevin, and I need to see regions first before I put in tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to bring up a point from the coaching aspect because as a college football and basketball gambler, you always want to know, in terms of value and why things are. Why is it in college basketball, top teams included, they're dominant at home but not dominant on the road? And not only just lose on the road, they get blown out on the road. They get absolutely trucked on the road time and time again. So when I look at these odds and I say, where am I going to pick off value from anywhere from like 50 to 150? Yeah. I would rather have a team 17-11, but they're 9-2 on the road. I know if they get a favorable matchup in terms of round number one, they have a shot, Coach.
Yeah, and I think this is where it gets tough as a coach, right? It's travel, and you're relying on, honestly, folks, 18 to 22-year-old kids to play well outside their building. And in college basketball, it means a lot. So to me, when you look at teams sometimes, that's why I bring up St. John's, right? Because they play more than half their games not in their home arena. They go to a bigger gym. And I think that's the other thing you have to look at is gym size, location, what time are they playing. There's a lot of factors you have to look at as a coach in regards to playing games on the road. That's why you look at that whole Big Ten and all these, Mick Cronin, right, and Muss, complaining about coming east. Why? 3 hours is a huge time difference for a college kid. A lot more than you think. NBA guys, they do that multiple times. They do it every year. College is different. Traveling on the road, it's a lot more difficult than you think.
Yeah, I think it's well said. For me, I have to start with where I am to let you know where I can go because I came into the year and I took Duke at 10-1. I knew that they were the favorites, and it's like, man, if you're betting the favorite, like, you must really, really like that team. But I did. And some of it was maybe last year I kind of did the bargain hunting, and I incredibly, had Auburn at like 80-1, and they lost to Yale, and that was great. Chad Baker-Mazar was punching people, and again, this excellent Auburn team was eliminated before the tournament really even got underway, which was incredible. But I said, look, I'm not scared to go to the top of the board. I just need to find a team that I really like. And one thing that you'll see is just because you take a favorite doesn't mean the number's not going to move in your favor. And every year, as teams start to separate, those numbers drop. So, yes, Duke at 10-1 was chalk, but you see it's under 4-1 now. The incredible thing is, as I grab that Duke number, I'm like, I don't know, am I really going to bet anyone else? And surprising to me, I fell in love with this Houston basketball team. A lot of it is how they play. The defense is as good as ever. Uzan, because I didn't like the guard play. This kid, Uzan, for me, I don't know. I might take him in the top 5, and it's a terrible pick, but I just love watching him play. Manny Sharp's been great when he's been out there. L.J. Cryer has been good enough. Juwan Roberts, JoJo Tugler manning the front court. They have the guys. But what pushed me over the edge was the number. At the time that I bet Houston 10-1 to win a title, Duke was down to 4-1, Auburn down to 4-1. Houston was at 10-1. They opened the year 9-1. They were going backwards because they weren't being given enough credit. And even still, they are down to plus 750. When you put that into perspective, again, Duke's number has been cut in half. Houston's is still pretty close to where it was. So if you're out there and you're like, I want to, hey, Kata, where you are, that's where I want to be. I'm on Houston, and I'm more positioned on Houston now because they didn't move the number than Duke. You guys know I love grab a free bet, let's throw it on something, right? I'm not throwing them on Duke at plus 360. That does nothing for me. But I'll throw it on Houston at 10-1, 9-1, 10-1, 9-9, 8-1. Okay,
yeah,
because those numbers have still been out there the whole time for me, Joe.
No, absolutely, and they've been to the dance now. They've slowly now recruited. They made the transition from the American to the Big 12. Any team that could be battle-tested on the road and play solid defense, you're going to be in games time and time again. Typically, a lot of these tournament games early on are lower scoring. They're not shootouts, so defensive-minded teams travel well. And I'll bring it up to you, Coach. Two teams that I'm looking at outside of, obviously, Memphis, which is a long shot, but I'm still willing to take a risk. I would probably, and I haven't put it in yet, but Florida is appealing to me at 11-1. I know they play well at home, but they're still battle-tested. They play well in SEC comp. And then the other one, would you take a shot? I mean, if this was college football, you'd be like, if I give you the back-to-back national champion, Georgia Bulldogs, would you take UConn at 80-1, Coach?
Well, I mean, that's a fantastic number, but a UConn team that we just can't seem to figure out day in and day out. Really quick, to go back to Houston before I talk about a couple of teams. Folks, they have 4 losses this year. 3 are in overtime. And the other one is Auburn by 5. So if you look at the schedule, they don't have bad losses, right? All their losses are good losses, close 1, 2, 3 points in overtime, and then obviously the 5-point loss early in the year. They've cleaned up the defense. Udon has been absolutely fantastic. They have to get Emmanuel Sharp healthy. He's coming back from that ankle injury. I'm concerned about Florida because I, as a coach, game slows down. I need half-court defense. So that's Duke. Yeah. That's Houston, right? That's Auburn. And who's one of the top 3 or 4 defensive teams in the country? If they get the matchup right, it's St. John's. My concern is they're not going to end up in the East. If they end up in the East, it may be a 2 seed with Duke, and I think that's a bad matchup for Rick Pitino's crew.
I'll just add one. Tennessee, Rick Barnes, 15-1, shows great value. Yeah, he's a compiler. Wins in the regular season, gets smashed in the postseason. Burn that ticket before you even buy it.
I think that is fair. Again, I've not gone anywhere else yet. I would say, if you want to get nuts, let me see if this is right. I mean, it's 500-1 for North Carolina. Like, you can bet all the favorites in the world. You put $2 on UNC, all of a sudden they become the hot team come March. We're going to get into today's best games with you next, right here on SportsGrid.
two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top three teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they've lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number one, do they fix their defensive problems? And two, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back right here on SportsGrid, rounding again through the Vegas games that we have on today's college basketball slate, with the SEC really featuring. We'll have our best bets coming up, our favorite player props on the slate. Anything we missed, we'll get to into this segment as well. But let's start at the top. We'll do some chronological order for the people here. At 1 o'clock, it's going to be Kentucky and Auburn. Can the Kentucky Wildcats pull off the upset and beat the number one team in the country? I go to you first, Joe Lisi.
They can, but I don't think they will. I told you if I'm going to bet this game, I would bet Kentucky potentially from a first-half perspective, but I would lay the 4.5 with Auburn, potentially lay it up to 9.5. I think it could be a double-digit win. You have the more smash job. Smash, not a crypto, it's a smash job. They won Kentucky 5 straight by 14 points per game, battle-tested on the road. Last 7 road games, they've won by 7.7 points per game. And you look at Kentucky, up and down over the last 4 weeks. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one. They're coming off a win, sold.
All right. Go ahead. Any breakdown there, Coach? All right.
Listen, when you get this matchup, obviously, you know, I'm going to lay the points at 4.5 on by Auburn. I mean, listen, you take away that 90-81 loss versus Florida, and you get concerned with a team going and running the gauntlet, and winning every game in league. They lost their game, and they've been really good since. And I keep looking at that 106-76 smash job that they did. See, I use your word smash against Ole Miss. I do like Auburn minus the 4.5. Janai Broome, another big performance tonight.
You know, I've mentioned I think that Kentucky can win this basketball game, and I do. But I also think that I really need to grab all the intel around me. Amari Williams, 20.5 points plus rebounds.
Plus the bounds.
The bounds and the points there. Look, he is coming off of an 8-3 performance where he didn't do much against OU in that game, dealt with a lot of foul trouble. But Amari Williams is very important to that basketball team. I think you're correct to bring up his occasional struggles and then the inconsistency that can come with Kentucky. But I think Amari Williams has been able to step up for this team. We saw he was stepped up in the game against Bama. Look, different opponent, different pace. I get that. But he had 17, 11, and 6. I think we could see Amari Williams play well here today against a front line where he might be out there more minutes than usual. We now get to the best game on this board. The biggest game on this board is probably the better way to put it. It's Tennessee as a 3.5-point home favorite against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Total in this one here, Coach, $158.5.
Well, I'll say it again because you'll hear it in the next segment. It is my best bet to go over 158.5. I think you're having a team in Alabama that's so dynamic offensively in the way that they not only play with efficiency, but the way they play with pace. And they're going to get Rick Barnes' team to speed up. Why? Because Rick Barnes also has high-level guards, obviously, in Lanier and Ziegler. So you have two guards on the other end that can push the pace just as well. I think this game gets out to be a track meet over 158.5. And I do think Alabama could actually steal this game as well.
I like Alabama a lot. That's my best play in this matchup. And the reason is, again, they've won 3 of the last 4 road games. I mentioned they have lost 3 straight in the series to Tennessee. But we've seen Tennessee as well play down to the level of competition at times. I mean, the 10.5-point road favorites against LSU, they can't close the door. They have won 3 straight, but it's very narrow margins by only 6.3 points per game, playing at home against a more complete team. Sears, you talk about Youngblood. I think it's Grant Nelson, but I think they step up, and I think they do win this ball game outright, Kev.
Yeah, for me, I prefer the underlook in this basketball game because I don't trust Tennessee going up against a team this fast. I think it can occasionally throw their offense out of sorts. And I also think for my concerns about Tennessee's offense, I'm not sure that they maybe get enough credit for how good their defense is. The SEC has 5 of the top 6 offenses in offensive efficiency, which is outrageous. They have the number 1 defense, right? There are no other defenses inside the top 6. I know that's a high bar, but this is the bar that we talk about with the SEC. Tennessee really is in a class of their own when we look at what they bring to the table defensively. We haven't seen in a long time Alabama actually play a game against a top 10 defense. That is kind of the nature of the SEC this season. But I haven't played it yet. And with Coach's breakdown, I may back off. What I have assuredly played is Igor Milicic over the 9.5 points. Bounce back spot, buy low spot, and a guy who's really thrived in the games against Kentucky. Where I say that, Ziegler, Lanier, some of the offenses doesn't look rhythmic against Kentucky. 19-9 and 16-9. Excellent in both of those games. 5 points, 4 points in his last 2 games. Total of 9. He goes over 9.5 alone here in this spot. Texas A&M and Florida. Big number here for the Gators, laying 9.5 against the Aggies, but Florida trying to bounce back after losing that one to Georgia, Joe.
Yeah, I talked about it. Lost 3 straight games by an average margin of 8.6 points per game. They need this game, to potentially solidify a better ranking in terms of March Madness. I like them, plus the 9.5. I don't know if they win it outright, Coach. I think Florida wins, but Texas A&M keeps it within the number.
I think, to me, the biggest reason why I like Texas A&M plus the points is, simply put, they're coming off they're on a 3-game losing streak. Yeah. Right? And I just think, and Kevin made this point earlier, I think this is why this number is baked into it being so high because of how they've looked as of late. I do think Florida will get the win. I just think they're kind of disrespecting Buzz's team a little bit, a team that's going to play the game slow, close to the vest. They get back to it. I'm not saying they win. I think they cover. Give me Texas A&M plus the 9.5.
And then the ranked battle that we have in the Big 12, that is going to be Arizona and Iowa State. I really like Curtis Jones props in this game. 16.5 points, 3+ made threes. I think both of those are likely to come in this matchup against the pacier team in Arizona, who will struggle to defend him with a bounce-back spot. Got the game under his leg against Oklahoma State. I think back at home where he shoots it much better, he will step up here. What do you see, Lisi?
I like Arizona plus the points. We talk about 6-3 on the road, and I like the tempo in this game. I'm going over the total. I'm just not sold right now, coming off a 2-game losing streak with Iowa State. Give me the points with Arizona, Coach.
And really quick, obviously with Iowa State, it's about health. Games at 9 o'clock, you have time. If Iowa State gets Jones and Gilbert both play, and that's confirmed, they're in the lineup, I like Iowa State minus the points. I know Arizona good on the road, but they haven't played the top teams on the road. Iowa State, first time healthy in a long time, that's going to pose problems.
Yeah, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. Best bets, favorite player prop, and any stones that we have not turned or need a re-rack for you before we close out. Betting above the rim right here on SportsGrid.
two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top three teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number one, do they fix their defensive problems? And two, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Oh, are we excited or what? What a day it's been. Are we feeling good? Are we feeling excited?
Great.
Let's get into these best bets. Then we'll get into that three-man weave and then anything else that we need to get to before we send you off into in-game live coverage throughout an excellent day of college basketball. And I will start it off to break it up a little bit. Give me Cincinnati plus 14.5. Might be down to 13.5 in some spots. I'm still playing it at that number. I think the Bearcats hang the whole way with Houston. I don't think they went outright. It's 14.5. But I think in a game with a total of 124.5, it's going to be hard to extend. Houston's in a terrible spot. Two huge games back-to-back. Iowa State at Texas Tech. And then on Monday, they play Kansas. This is a look-ahead spot if there ever was one, and Cincinnati's been playing better. I think they hang the whole way against one of the very best teams in college basketball.
I like the look. I'm on Cincinnati as well, and we'll see if they could do it. Maybe push Houston to the limit. I think the schedule could catch up to Houston at this point in terms of the weekend, so we'll see how it plays out. I'm going to go to Charlottesville in the ACC. I know Clemson ranked 13th overall, 5 straight. 12 points per game. I'm saying this right now.
Yeah.
They could be frauds. They beat Duke 77-71. I don't see it. They go back to old school basics against Virginia. Right now, slower, ugly type of game. Bang the boards, Virginia. Plus the 6.5. They might win this outright, Coach. I'm just going to say they might win this outright, Virginia.
Spicy. I'm going to go back to the SEC, and I've said it a couple of times. Pace. That team of Alabama just gets you in nuts and shorts and getting up and down the floor. Over 158.5. Since January 14th, at least one of the two teams, the Alabama opponent, has scored 80 points in a game. This game gets up and down. Give me over 158.5.
All right, some juice there for JY in the biggest game of the day. Now, pass it, shoot it, run the lanes. It's time for the three-man weave. The one in the back there looked a little thicker. I think that was me. I like that. But listen, I'll still run the break if I got it. Give me this Julian Reese over the 22.5 points plus rebounds, premium bounce back spot, playing a pacey Penn State team as well. Reese last game, 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting, just 7 rebounds. When he has gone from a Big Ten game to a Big Ten game, going up following a really poor game. 16-10, 23-7, 27-17, 13-12. Julian Reese will stuff the stat sheet today against the Nittany Lions because Maryland needs him to, Joe.
No, he will, and I'll be rooting it in for you. I'm going to go to the big game in Knoxville, Alabama, Tennessee. Yep. I know Mark Sears is the guy. 24.4 points per game over the last 5 games. Mm-hmm. But I think right now it's Grant Nelson. This is, to me, going to be a half-court style game. I think Grant Nelson jumps out. His number's 9.5. That's 2 points higher than what he's averaged over the last 5 games. He's only averaged 7.6 points per game. I like him over the 9.5. I'm going to alt him, Kev, to 15 plus, a plus money in the area of about plus 190, Coach. I think Grant Nelson could have a breakout performance on the road in Knoxville today.
Isn't it amazing? Stretch 4, he takes points plus rebounds. Guy is a shooter. I think you're a shooter, right? You definitely shoot better than Donnie right side.
Yeah.
He takes the points. Where am I going? I'm going to the rebounds.
Yeah.
I'm going Hunter Dickinson over 10.5 rebounds. Both teams top 65 in rebounding rate. But if you look at Hunter Dickinson, the last 3 games has gone over this number against teams that are all over, I should say, 130 or better in rebounding rate. He's going to be a big part of this Kansas team's going to make a run. Hunter Dickinson, over 10.5 rebounds.
All right, anything that we have missed, like Cooper Flagg, 32.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Let's see. What else do I have there? The BYU team total under the 74.5. Pitt catching 10 and a hook against Louisville. Anything else that we missed, Lisi, for you?
Yeah, Mississippi State. They're laying a big number, 11.5. I'm not sold on LSU. They've lost 9 of the last 11 games. You look at they've lost 2 straight by 10 points per game. 9 of the 9 losses have come by an average margin of defeat of 12.7 points per game. It seems like a big number, but I think Miss State boat races LSU today.
Well, I like Vandy at home to get the win. I think Indiana goes on the road. They have to get a win at Washington. And then here we go. Seton Hall plus the 20.5. Why? Lewis isn't playing? 2 bad groins for Kadari? I know St. John's is going to win, but Shot keeps it close. Plus 20.5 for the Pirates.
Oh, man. You knew he was going to get it in.
I'll throw in 2 dogs, West Virginia and Arizona. I like both of them today.
All right, so keep an eye on the dogs. I'll keep an eye late night Gonzaga Dons. We'll tweet something out. Make sure you stay locked in throughout the day on SportsGrid. In-game live is next.
Two guys.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What?
How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on Sport.